I never thought I'd be writing a post like this, but here I am. My name is Jake, I'm in my mid-30s, and I've been married to Sarah for 5 years. We met in college and fell in love over late-night study sessions and shared dreams about our future. In the beginning, everything was beautiful. We had all those idealistic notions of love, life, and happiness. But recently, things started feeling off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It started small. Sarah became distant, often preoccupied with her phone. She would giggle at texts and then quickly change the subject when I walked in. I brushed it off at first. After all, we live in a digital age, and it was probably just group chats about trivial matters. But then the late nights at work began, followed by her sudden interest in hitting the gym more frequently. It was great that she was focusing on her health, but I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to it. One evening, I decided to surprise her. I got off work early and planned a nice dinner. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw her there, looking at her phone with that same stupid grin plastered across her face. I asked what was so funny, and she just waved me off, saying it was nothing. Something inside me twisted. The vibe around her felt different, almost like I was looking at a stranger. Then came the gym buddy, Mark. He was my friend, a guy I worked out with, a good guy. We exchanged texts about workouts and shared tips. Sarah started mentioning him more often, praising his fitness routine and how motivating he was. At first, I thought nothing of it. I was glad that she found someone to help her stay fit. But deep down, the unease began to grow. I remember one night I was scrolling through my social media and saw a post from Sarah. It was a picture of her and Mark, all smiles and flexed muscles, with the caption, "Gym buddies for life." Red heart, my heart sank. I felt a wave of nausea crash over me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but there was something about that picture that felt wrong. My gut was screaming at me, and I knew I had to find out the truth. The following week, I decided to do some digging. I casually asked her about Mark, trying to play it cool. She laughed it off, saying he was just a friend and that I was being paranoid. But her eyes darted away from mine, and I could see the flicker of something that told me I was right. I started checking our joint bank statements, looking for anything unusual. That's when I found it, a charge at a local hotel that I didn't recognize. The sinking feeling in my stomach turned into a pit of anger. I confronted Sarah that night. She was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone when I asked her about the hotel charge. Her face turned pale, and for a split second I saw fear in her eyes. "Oh, that? I was just planning a surprise for you," she stammered, but it didn't feel convincing at all. "A surprise, really, for me?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. Then it all came crashing down. The excuses piled up and her story began to unravel. She finally admitted to having an affair with Mark. "It was just a couple of times, Jake. It didn't mean anything," she said, her voice thick with tears. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. How could she say it didn't mean anything when it meant everything to me? I stood there, feeling as if the ground had slipped away beneath my feet. The betrayal cut deep. All the love, the years we spent together, seemed to vanish in an instant. The anger bubbled inside me, mixed with an overwhelming sense of loss. She had shattered the life we built together, and I felt utterly helpless. I took a step back, my mind racing. How could she do this to us, to me? I had never imagined that the woman I loved could betray me so deeply. It felt surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. As the initial shock began to wear off, I felt myself spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions. I was angry, furious, even, but beneath that anger was an undeniable sadness. I thought of all the moments we had shared, the laughter and love, and asked myself how everything had gone so wrong. I realized then that I had a decision to make. Do I try to save this marriage, or do I walk away? I didn't want to live in a world where trust was shattered and love felt more like a burden than a blessing. It was going to take all the strength I had to navigate what came next. The days that followed our confrontation were a blur. Sarah was filled with apologies, tears, and frantic attempts to justify her actions. "I was just feeling lost, Jake. You've been so busy with work and I felt neglected," she would say, as if that somehow excused what she had done. It infuriated me. I had been busy, yes, but I was still there, still present in our home. I was still her husband, not some ghost that she could excuse her infidelity with. Every time she reached out to me, trying to hold my hand or pull me in for a hug, I recoiled. The warmth and love I once felt for her had been replaced by a cold, hard anger. I needed space to think, to process everything that was happening. Instead, I felt trapped in a cycle of her remorseful expressions and the memories of betrayal replaying in my mind like a broken record. I started spending more time at the gym, partly to escape the tension at home and partly to blow off the steam building inside me. I poured my energy into workouts, pushing harder than ever before. I was seeing results and feeling stronger, both physically and mentally. That's when an idea began to take shape in my mind. What if I turned this pain into something productive? What if I transformed myself into someone that not only felt good but also thrived? I started to document my fitness journey on social media. I had always been interested in fitness, but now it became my lifeline. With each post, I shared my workouts, progress photos, and even the meals I was preparing. I found a community online that celebrated health and fitness, and it felt empowering to connect with others who shared the same passion. As my following began to grow, I felt a sense of control that I hadn't felt in weeks. It was during this time that I decided to confront the reality of my marriage. I sat down with Sarah again after a week of distancing myself. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my tone steady. Her face paled at my serious demeanor. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Sarah. I don't know if I want to," I continued, feeling the weight of my words. "What? You can't be serious," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "We can work through this. I love you." Her desperation was palpable, but it only fueled my resolve. "You say you love me, but you've shown me that you can betray me without a second thought. Love is built on trust, and you shattered that. I need to think about what's best for me, and I don't think that's staying in this marriage." The look in her eyes morphed from shock to anger, and she began throwing accusations. "You're being selfish. You're just going to throw away everything we built together," she yelled. It was painful to watch her unravel, but I knew I had to stay strong. "You threw it away the moment you decided to cheat on me. I can't be in a relationship where I don't feel valued or respected," I told her firmly. I was done listening to her excuses. The emotional toll of this situation was starting to show on me. I was exhausted from the fighting, the tears, and the heartache. I needed a plan, a way to reclaim my life. I knew I was going to take control of my future, and that meant taking my newfound fitness journey seriously. Over the next few weeks, I continued to build my online presence, sharing my journey with anyone who would listen. I began receiving messages of support from people who had been through similar situations. They shared their stories of heartbreak and redemption, inspiring me even further. I started to think that maybe I could turn this whole experience into something bigger, something that would help others. In the meantime, I still had to deal with Sarah's constant attempts to win me back. She would call me at odd hours, send long, emotional texts, and even show up at the gym, trying to catch me after a workout. There was a part of me that felt guilty for shutting her out, but I reminded myself that I was doing this for my own mental health. I had to prioritize myself for once. As my social media following skyrocketed, I began to gain attention from local fitness brands. I received offers to collaborate on fitness-related content, and the excitement felt exhilarating. I was finally stepping into my own light, away from the shadows of betrayal. I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. It was intoxicating, and I wanted more. But as I was riding the wave of my success, Sarah was still trying to reach out. She started saying things like, "I'm proud of you," and "You're really making a name for yourself." Part of me appreciated that she could still recognize my achievements, but it was clouded by everything that had happened. I found myself torn between wanting to share my successes with her and the pain of her past actions. The emotional conflict was overwhelming. I was learning how to love and appreciate myself again, but at the same time, I was struggling with the remnants of our broken relationship. How could I move forward with this new life I was building, while Sarah was still trying to pull me back into the old one? It was becoming increasingly clear that I needed to make a decision, either let her back into my life or cut ties completely. I could no longer dwell in this limbo of uncertainty. I had to face the reality that I was changing and that maybe, just maybe, I would be better off without her. As I continued to build my fitness platform, I found myself surrounded by a supportive community that celebrated not just physical transformation but personal growth as well. Each day, I gained more confidence in my abilities and my worth, both as an individual and a man. I started to feel like I was reclaiming my life, and it felt good, really good. But with Sarah still in the picture, I felt like I was juggling two different worlds, and I was tired of the constant back and forth. One particular evening, after a grueling workout, I returned home to find Sarah sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. The sight of her made my heart ache. No matter how angry I was, I didn't want to see her in pain, but the hurt I felt was still too raw. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to have a final conversation, to lay everything out on the table once and for all. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, this time with a calmness that surprised even me. She looked up, a glimmer of hope in her eyes, as if she thought this conversation would lead to reconciliation. "Jake, I'm so sorry for everything. I know I messed up. Just give me another chance," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. "You didn't just cheat on me, you broke my trust. You shattered the foundation of our marriage." I know, I've been working on myself too. "Let's go to couples therapy. We can fix this." She sounded desperate, and I could see how much she wanted to salvage what was left of our relationship. But the idea of couples therapy felt like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I didn't want to fix something that felt irreparably broken. "Sarah, I've changed. My priorities have changed. I'm not the man I was when this all started," I admitted. "I'm not sure I want us anymore." The anger in her eyes flickered for a moment before it disappeared, replaced by sadness. "You're serious, aren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am," I said, feeling a mix of guilt and relief. "I'm beginning to love myself again, and I can't do that while still tied to you. I think it's best for both of us to separate." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's tears fell freely now, and I felt an unfamiliar heaviness in my chest. I wanted to comfort her, to say that everything would be okay, but the truth was I was done. I needed to put myself first, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. "Maybe this is what you need to realize what you had, Jake. You'll miss me when I'm gone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as if she were trying to convince herself. "I don't want to miss you. I want to thrive and be happy, and I can't do that with the ghost of our past hanging over me," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. When I walked away from that conversation, I felt a profound sense of clarity wash over me. I had made a choice that was entirely mine, one that would allow me to step into my new life without the burden of betrayal. I began to envision my future without Sarah, and it didn't feel like a loss, it felt like liberation. In the following weeks, I continued to grow my online fitness presence. I partnered with brands, shared my journey, and even began to host live workout sessions. People were starting to notice my transformation, and I connected with followers who shared their own stories of heartbreak and resilience. I realized I wasn't alone. There were countless people out there who had been through similar situations and had come out stronger on the other side. But as I was thriving in this new chapter, the aftermath of my separation from Sarah was still looming. I received a message from her one evening that sent my heart racing. "I miss you, Jake. I still love you. Can we at least talk?" I stared at the message for what felt like hours, torn between the emotional weight of her words and the determination I had built over the past weeks. I wanted to respond, to tell her that I was moving on, but I also felt a pang of guilt. Instead of replying immediately, I decided to focus on my workouts. I hit the gym, pushing myself harder than ever, channeling my emotions into physical strength. It was cathartic, to say the least. The sweat pouring down my back felt like a release, and with each rep I felt lighter, freer. The next day, I decided to reflect on my feelings before making any rash decisions. I thought about how far I had come and how much I had worked to reclaim my sense of self. The thought of going back to the old way of life made my stomach churn. I finally crafted a response to Sarah. "I'm sorry, but I think it's best if we don't communicate for a while. I need this time to focus on myself and build a future that doesn't include you in it. Sending that message felt like cutting a final cord. It was a relief, but also bittersweet. I knew Sarah was hurting, and part of me wished she could have recognized the damage before it spiraled out of control. But I also knew that my happiness couldn't depend on someone who had so deeply betrayed my trust. As I focused on my fitness journey and personal growth, I began to realize that this chapter of my life was not just an ending, it was a beginning. I was breaking free from the heartbreak and stepping into a version of myself that was stronger and more resilient than ever before. I was finally starting to understand that sometimes letting go is the only way to grow. As the weeks rolled on, I found myself immersed in my fitness journey and the vibrant community that surrounded it. I was gaining traction online, and my follower count was steadily climbing. It felt incredible to inspire others while simultaneously healing from my own heartbreak. Still, the ache of my past lingered in the corner of my mind, a reminder of the betrayal I had experienced. Despite my newfound success, there were days when the memories of Sarah would creep back in. I'd find myself staring at my phone, almost expecting a message from her, but I quickly reminded myself that I had made the right decision. I needed to focus on myself and give myself the space to heal without being dragged back into the emotional turmoil of our past. One evening, while I was scrolling through social media, I noticed a post from Mark. He had shared a picture of himself at the gym, flexing proudly with an arrogant caption about his fitness journey. At first, I felt a surge of anger and resentment. This was the guy who had betrayed me too, the one who had crossed the line with my wife. But then I took a breath, and instead of letting it consume me, I turned that anger into motivation. Let's see how well you do when I'm on my A game, I muttered to myself. From that moment on, I pushed myself even harder at the gym. I was no longer just working out for my own health. I was training with the intent to show everyone, including Sarah and Mark, that I could rise above the pain and become something incredible. As my online presence grew, I started receiving inquiries from brands about potential collaborations. I was contacted by a fitness apparel company that wanted to partner with me on a campaign. The excitement was overwhelming. I hadn't just transformed my body, I was turning my passion into a career. I spent hours preparing content, filming workout videos, and perfecting my social media strategy. One afternoon, after a particularly intense workout, I received a call from the brand's marketing team. They wanted to feature my transformation story in their upcoming campaign, highlighting how I overcame personal struggles through fitness. I couldn't believe it. This was a significant opportunity, and one that would allow me to share my journey with even more people. As I prepared for the campaign, I realized that I had a chance to use my story to help others. I could share the raw truth about the emotional battles I had faced, the heartbreak of betrayal, and how I had channeled that pain into something positive. I was ready to be vulnerable, to show the world that healing was possible, and that it could come from the most difficult experiences. The day of the photo shoot arrived, and I was both excited and nervous. I was surrounded by a team of professionals who were eager to capture my journey. The energy in the room was electric, and I felt a sense of purpose as I stood in front of the camera. I shared my story openly, discussing my commitment to fitness and how it had helped me regain control over my life after the betrayal. As I spoke, I could see the understanding. In the eyes of the crew, I was no longer just a guy who had been cheated on. I was a testament to resilience, strength, and the power of transformation. I finished the shoot feeling invigorated and inspired, as if I had taken a leap forward in my personal journey. Meanwhile, Sarah was still trying to stay in contact, sending me text messages filled with memories of our time together. "I miss our adventures," she wrote one day. "Remember that time we hiked up that mountain? I wish we could do that again." I read the message and felt a pang of nostalgia, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of our situation. I wasn't the same person I had been when we shared those moments. I had grown, and I realized that I could cherish those memories without longing to rekindle our relationship. I replied with a simple, "Those were great times. I hope you're doing well." It felt like a clean break, an acknowledgement of our past without opening the door to the hurt that lay between us. As my fitness campaign launched, I received an outpouring of support from followers. Messages poured in, with people thanking me for sharing my story and inspiring them to take control of their own lives. I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't experienced in a long time. I was no longer defined by my past. I was forging a new identity, an identity rooted in strength and resilience. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, a knock on my apartment door shattered my moment of triumph. I opened the door to find Sarah standing there, looking vulnerable and lost. My heart raced as I took in her tear-stained face. "Jake, can we please talk?" she pleaded, her voice shaking. I hesitated. This was the moment I had been dreading and anticipating all at once. I had built a strong wall around my heart, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to let her in again. But I also realized that I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. "Fine, but let's do it here," I said, stepping aside to let her in. As she entered, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: anger, sadness, confusion, and even a hint of sympathy. We had shared so much, but now it felt like we were strangers in a complicated dance. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Jake. I've realized how much I messed up, and I'm truly sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sorry doesn't change what you did, Sarah," I replied, feeling the tension rise in the air. "I know, but I want to prove to you that I can change. I've been going to therapy and I want to work on myself. Can we try to start fresh?" The weight of her words pressed down on me. Part of me was tempted to believe her. After all, I had loved her once. But another part of me remembered the pain and betrayal and wondered if it was wise to let her back into my life. I needed to decide whether this was an opportunity for growth or just another trap for my heart. "Let me think about it, Sarah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But you need to understand that I'm no longer the person I was before. I'm not sure I can go back to what we had." I watched as a mix of hope and fear crossed her face. I knew this conversation wouldn't be easy, but it was a necessary step toward defining what my future would look like, with or without her. As the conversation with Sarah continued, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Her presence filled the room with a mix of nostalgia and unresolved tension. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. "What exactly do you want from me, Sarah?" I finally asked, my voice steady but edged with uncertainty. "I just want a chance to show you I can be better," she replied, her eyes pleading. "I know I hurt you and I can't take that back, but I want to work on rebuilding trust together. I miss you, Jake. I miss us." The words hung in the air between us like a heavy fog. I wanted to believe her, but the wounds of betrayal were still fresh in my mind. Our history together was marred by her choices, and I struggled to reconcile the woman I once loved with the one who had caused me so much pain. "Do you really think it's that simple, that we can just magically fix everything?" I shot back, frustration creeping into my tone. "You broke my trust, and trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight. It takes time, effort, and genuine honesty." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "That's what I want to prove to you. I've been doing the work. I've been going to therapy, reevaluating my choices, and I want to be a better person for myself and for you. I just need you to give me a chance to show you that I've changed." I felt torn. Part of me wanted to jump back into the comfort of our past, to believe that we could reclaim what we once had. But the other part, the part that had built this new life for myself, fought back. I had spent so much time healing and growing. The thought of stepping back into the old dynamics felt suffocating. "Sarah," I said slowly, "you have to understand that I've changed. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I've learned to prioritize myself, and I've found strength and purpose in my fitness journey. I'm not sure I can go back to being someone who allows themselves to be hurt like that again." Her eyes filled with tears, and I saw genuine remorse reflected in her gaze. "I understand," she whispered, "but I want you to know that I'm willing to fight for us. I don't want to lose you, Jake. You mean too much to me." The words struck a chord. I couldn't deny that a part of me still cared for her. I thought about the good times we had shared, the laughter, the plans for the future. But all of that was now overshadowed by the pain of her betrayal. "Can we at least take some time apart?" I suggested, my voice softer now. I need to figure out what I truly want. I need space to think. Sarah nodded, her face a mixture of defeat and understanding. I'll respect that. I just hope you'll consider what we had and the possibility of rebuilding. You will always have a piece of my heart, Jake. As she left, I felt a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. The conversation had been difficult, but it had also clarified something for me. I had to prioritize my emotional well-being above all else. In the days that followed, I threw myself into my fitness regimen and the growing community I had built online. I created content that inspired people not just to be fit, but to embrace their journeys of self-discovery. I shared posts about mental health, resilience, and the importance of setting boundaries. The engagement from my followers was overwhelming. It felt good to connect with people who understood the struggles of love, loss, and personal growth. As I worked out more intensely, I began to envision my future. I wanted to continue building my brand, perhaps even exploring opportunities as a motivational speaker or fitness coach. I felt a surge of determination that had been absent during my time with Sarah. This was my moment to shine, to take control of my narrative without the interference of the past. But just when I thought I was moving forward, I received a message from Mark. Hey man, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out and apologize for everything that happened with Sarah. I never meant for things to get so complicated. The message caught me off guard. I hadn't really considered him in this mix of emotions. My gut reaction was to respond angrily, to tell him exactly what I thought of him. But I paused, realizing that I didn't need the added drama in my life. Thanks for reaching out, I replied. I appreciate the apology, but Sarah and I are trying to figure things out on our own. Let's keep our distance. Hitting send felt liberating. I wasn't going to allow anyone back into my life who could jeopardize the progress I had made. I was reclaiming my story, my power, and I wasn't about to let Sarah or Mark diminish that. As I continued my journey, I found myself reflecting on what I had learned through all this pain. I had discovered that personal growth often comes from the hardest experiences. I had learned to love myself again, to embrace my worth, and to forge a path that was uniquely my own. I realized that my past didn't define my future. I was ready to pursue happiness, whether that involved keeping my distance from Sarah or exploring new relationships down the line. The journey ahead was finally beginning to feel like mine, and I was excited to see where it would lead. But just as I was getting comfortable in my new skin, I received another message from Sarah. I'm not giving up on us, Jake. I hope you know that. It was clear that the past wasn't done with me yet. I had some tough choices ahead, but I was determined to remain strong in my resolve. I would navigate this uncharted territory with the same courage I had found through my own transformation. My future was waiting, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. The days turned into weeks, and Sarah's persistence didn't wane. Each message she sent seemed to echo with desperation, and I found myself growing weary of the emotional tug-of-war. She would send texts reminiscing about our happiest moments together, each one pulling at the remnants of my heart. Remember our anniversary at the beach? We were so happy, she'd write, followed by, I miss that us, Jake. I understood her pain, I truly did, but memories were just that, memories. They couldn't erase the reality of our relationship or the betrayal I was trying to move past. I had worked too hard to regain my sense of self, and I wasn't ready to risk it all for a chance at rekindling something fragile. Then one day, as I was filming a new workout video for my social media, I received a notification that made my heart stop. Sarah had posted a video of her own, one that was clearly meant for me. In it, she spoke candidly about her mistakes, her regrets, and the lessons she had learned. I've hurt someone I love, and I'm working to become a better version of myself, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I hope he can find it in his heart to forgive me one day. Watching that video struck a chord deep within me. I could see her sincerity, the raw emotion that had led her to share her truth so publicly. It was a moment of vulnerability that I hadn't witnessed before, but it also brought back a flood of my own feelings, betrayal, anger, and sadness. I contemplated for days on what her video meant for us. Part of me felt compelled to meet her halfway, to acknowledge her efforts, while another part screamed at me to hold my ground. I realized that my decision couldn't be based on guilt or sympathy. It had to come from a place of clarity and strength. After much reflection, I decided to respond to her directly. I wrote a message that was honest and firm. "I appreciate your video, Sarah. It shows that you're reflecting on your actions, and it takes courage to be so open. However, I need to be clear, I can't go back to our old ways. I'm focusing on my own journey, and I need to do this away from you. I believe we both need to heal separately." I hit send, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. It was time to stop dwelling on the past and start focusing on my future. It was time to stop trying to mend something that had been irreparably broken and instead to allow myself the space to grow. A few days later, I received a notification that Sarah had responded. She thanked me for my honesty and expressed her understanding of my choice. "I wish you all the best in your journey, Jake. I hope you achieve everything you set out to do," she wrote. Those words felt like closure, a bittersweet end to a chapter of my life that had been filled with love, joy, heartbreak, and betrayal. As I moved forward, I fully embraced my transformation. I devoted myself to my fitness brand, creating engaging content that resonated with my audience. I organized local fitness meetups and even began mentoring others who were going through difficult times. The more I shared, the more I realized that my experiences could help others navigate their own heartaches. I learned to prioritize my mental health through fitness and encouraging others, and it became a source of joy for me. I started exploring new hobbies like hiking and yoga, which not only enhanced my physical well-being, but also provided me with a sense of peace and mindfulness that I had been missing. I was no longer defined by my relationship with Sarah. I was carving out my own path. Months passed, and while I occasionally thought of Sarah, it was in a way that felt more reflective than painful. I had grown and changed, and I was proud of the person I was becoming. I realized that the end of my marriage had not been the end of my life. Instead, it had been a catalyst for my transformation. In the end, I came to understand that sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the most profound growth. I learned that love doesn't always mean staying together, and that sometimes it's about letting go. I had reclaimed my strength, my passion, and my purpose. And so, as I stood in front of a crowd at a local fitness event, sharing my story of resilience and transformation, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. I looked out at the faces of people who were inspired and motivated, and I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. The past had shaped who I was, but it no longer controlled my future. Today, I am stronger both physically and emotionally. I've learned that healing takes time, but it's possible. Life is a journey, and I'm excited to see where mine takes me next. I'm ready for whatever comes my way, equipped with the knowledge that I can overcome anything.